So the as I was saying before that interruption, we do work both with the NHS and the private sector, and we will be offering you those choices as and when you proceed down the journey. Just before I hand over, I do want to say that this is an incredible time within the UK market, in the sense that following the COVID, which I appreciate you also will have experience of, having looking at the news, the you know, the NHS and the private sector, just healthcare itself, is a very respected area right now, where there's a lot of interest. There's a lot of heightened sort of interest from media, from and beyond. But it's also it's an incredible place to work in. There's a lot of respect. People really have started to appreciate, and they should have done long before. I'm sure you agree. But they've now come to really appreciate what nurses bring to society as a whole. So it's a really good place to work. There is a lot of respect, both within the NHS and private sector, for nurses. If that's okay, at that point I will hold, and we can take questions at the end. Vijay, is that okay? Or
yeah, absolutely. So okay. Let's turn this over to Miral then to talk about the Global Learners Program. Miral?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. As Maddie and
Miral, your video is off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Am I visible now? Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Hi. Hello, everyone. As Maddie and Vijay mentioned, we are the kind of like the premier partners over here in the UK when it comes to recruiting international nurses. And what happened is, like, the NHS have come up with this Global Learners Program. This is the only authorized program where one can recruit nurses from abroad. I mean, it's kind of an umbrella program where a lot of the NHS hospitals have come together just to ensure that there's a standardization, there's the similar quality of nurses that they expect, and they've got similar partners who help them on this journey. So just to give a bit of an overview of what it is, when it comes, So just to give you a bit of an overview about what it entitles. So the Global Learners Program, what it offers is, like, you get a 3-year work visa. No, it's not just only for you, but for your family as well. So you can bring your family across to the UK if you are selected as part of this Global Learners Program and you get recruited as a nurse. And the way it works is, like, you get a really good kind of, like, the support throughout your whole journey, right from, like, you need to be qualified on the IELTS, and you need to go into the you will be registered with the Nursing and the Midwifery Council. Also the visa and all that would be sorted out as part of this Global Learners Program. Along with it, what it happens is, like, we being the premier partners, we can also help you throughout the journey, in the sense, once you land into London or into the UK, I would put it that way, we can help you with the pastoral care. We can help you with, like, accommodation or any other kind of, like, assistance that you need, right from opening a bank account, identifying the schools for your children, and everything. I mean, if you're coming with your family. So all this is part of the whole kind of a program that the NHS have come up with, and we support NHS on this journey. Vijay, if you go on to the next slide.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, like, there are about, I would say, 25 to 30 hospitals which are part of this GLP program. More and more hospitals are signing up to it literally on a weekly basis. The reason being, as this being the only authorized program by the NHS is pushing all the hospitals to be a part of it. And you've got the list of some of the hospitals which are part of it, and we can help you in identifying the opportunities for you wherever you want to kind of, like, go into the right kind of a location or your right line of your area of expertise. Raj, do you want to?
Thank you, Miral. So my name is Raj Kuchia. I'm actually a practicing urologist and consultant in London. I would like to speak about why I moved to UK and why I work in the NHS. So like yourselves, I have been born and brought up in India, Delhi. And subsequently, after finishing medicine, I moved here to learn surgery. But the way the system is in the NHS here, you kind of fall in love with the way it works and how satisfying it is to work here, because you get opportunities to grow, you get opportunities to show your talent and skills and be recognized for it. And there is always a development and progression in your career. So you're not always just a nurse on the ward or a nurse in theaters. You always have a chance and opportunity to grow with your job as time goes along. So I think somebody's also asked a similar question about why come to UK if the salary package is quite small to start with. It depends on what your needs are. But the NHS not only just pays you the salary which you mentioned in the package, like 18,000 as a starting nurse, but there is progression and there is growth in your career. So it's not always going to be at that level. You will grow, you will be able to afford a lot more than probably you can whilst you work in other countries. But the more important thing is your hours are regulated. Your work pattern is very much pro towards work, but also training and progression. So the NHS looks at all these things, and there is no discrimination just because you're an overseas nurse and you're an English nurse. Everybody's treated the same. And NHS is one of the biggest employers in the world as far as healthcare is concerned. It is probably the sixth largest employer as such. So there is a lot of chance for movement, for progression, and for your own career development, which will give you a lot more satisfaction working in a system which has a very different way of working compared to, let's say, hospitals in India or other countries. The other thing about NHS is that will be a growth and demand in the next 5 years, because as you've seen with the pandemic, it has exposed a lot of vulnerabilities, a lot of issues about not having enough doctors and nurses, especially nurses. So there are lots of opportunities. Hence, even if you get one job and you want to move to another job or another region within the system, you can do as you progress along with that. So I would say that the work satisfaction and the work-life balance which you get working in the NHS, it's unparalleled in any other health system as such.
Sorry, Raj, I'll just add a bit more onto the salary package. So as Raj mentioned, it's 18,000 pounds as you land into the UK. But once you pass your Oxy within the first 3 months, it goes to 24,000. Plus what the NHS provide is a bit of like shift allowance and overtime and all that. So on an average, the nurse at the end of the year one, they earn about 34,000 to 35,000 pounds a year without the additional overtime. It's with including, so this 34,000 pounds is more like the shift allowance and like weekends and stuff like that. So which is quite a good, I would say, a starting salary. And then, as Raj mentioned, as you progress, your competence and your annual salary package increases as well. Sorry, Raj.
Yeah, no, I was going to add that there are nurses I know now who earn probably more than some of the consultants do because of their ability to sort of develop their role into that kind of positions. So there is no limit to what you do. And also, like Miral mentioned, the number of hours you work on your contract is 40 hours, but you can do other shifts, what is called bank shifts or locum shifts. So you can add extra shifts if you have spare time or you want to earn more. And again, there are ample opportunities once you get registered fully registered on the nursing council. So that way is quite good. And still you get enough time to yourself for your family life, for doing other things, pursuing your own sort of interests. And within the nursing training here or working, there's also focus on training and development on the job. So if you want to learn skills while you're nursing in, let's say, a ward or theater, they send you for their own courses through again budgeted through the NHS, and then get your skills higher. So you get to work, but you also get to train at the same time. And here you will find the other thing which is, I think, lacking in India, is the respect for nurses. The respect you get as a nurse here is sometimes more than doctors get. In fact, most of the times more than doctors get. So it is quite a satisfying place to work as a nurse.
Excellent. Do you want to cover this also, Rajesh?
Yeah, will do.
Or maybe Miral can. Yeah.
I think Miral is probably in a better position, but I can just mention some things. I mean, there are some upfront costs which everybody has to undertake a little bit with regards to exams, whether it be IELTS or CBT exam, and then the cost of your visa and your move to the UK, especially when it comes to the GLP program. It does get covered by your employers. So all the costs which are incurred, most of them will be recovered apart from the initial exam costs. I
But
think the registration.
Also, Rajesh, isn't it
Go on.
true that right now the cost of the UK visa has been made zero for people coming for healthcare, right? So yeah.
Yes,
so right
I
now
think
this 1,200 pounds
healthcare
is
professionals are on the priority list for. Absolutely. So healthcare costs for the professionals are right now, I mean, it's the visa system it's been one of the priorities being sort of highlighted as nursing staff. So then, A, it is easier to get a visa. B, if you're being employed through NHS, the employer also takes on the cost of other sort of costs for your coming across. There was one other thing which was about, I think you still have to pay for your IELTS exam, which doesn't get reimbursed. Is that correct, Vijay, in India?
Yeah, the IELTS. Sorry, Miral, go ahead.
So the way it is like, you pay for your IELTS exam. If you pass and if you go through us, we will reimburse up to 10,000 rupees for the IELTS, which is also part of the GLP's program as well. So the NHS and the GLP, they will reimburse if you go through us up to 10,000 rupees for the IELTS and the OET exam.
Yeah. So the IELTS and OET exam, the initial fees will need to be paid by the nurse themselves, and if there is a reimbursement that comes later. Also, the cost of the UK visa, right now it's zero, but even when it comes, it's paid upfront for the nurse, and then it's recovered in small amounts over the course of the year once they start working. Correct?
Yeah. But as Raj and you mentioned, now that cost is zero when it comes to UK visa, because the government has taken it down for the international nurses. So what Raj and what Vijay also mentioned is like there's a lot of respect for the nurses, and the government is doing their utmost to get the right kind of like nurses to come and work in the NHS over here. Raj, you're on mute.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So I mean, working in the NHS, I think personally, I found that it's a big, diverse organization, and you will come to meet and work with people from all across the world, and sort of it's a very, very sort of satisfying experience being there, because not only do you work with different people, but you also learn different things from different people apart from the work patterns. You're very well supported. So even if you start as a junior ward nurse, you'll have layers and layers of people who supervise you, who look after your needs for professional development and getting your competencies. So the work satisfaction you get, I think, is by far the best you can get in any healthcare in the world. You're not asked to do things which you're not capable or not sort of feeling comfortable doing. You are not asked to spend extra hours beyond your time unless it's an emergency or it's paid for. So all these things are really important, and it's something which as a professional one would really value. So the other thing I would like to mention is about the different parts of UK. So I think somebody asked a question again that if my living costs are going to be so high. Why should I come to UK? Living costs vary from place to place, and not every single part of the country is the same. So as you can see in this breakdown, if you're in sort of, let's say, slightly away from big cities, you can certainly get a fairly good quality of life without spending a lot of money, and yet be able to save a good amount of money from your salaries, which you can use for either investment or sending back to family in India. Which, as you can see, I mean, even if you see the slightly smaller towns but very good cities, you can still see that they're quite comparable to sort of your costs in India. But most people will be able to save a decent amount of money as time goes along. So it's quite a sort of satisfying thing to sort of have both work being good and at the same time being sort of monetarily being remunerated very well. Next
So,
slide, please.
Rajesh,
Vijay.
if sorry, just to make it easier for everyone on the call. So what you're saying is, let's say you're in Portsmouth, then in about 700 to 800 pounds in a month, you're paying your rent and your transport and internet fee, and maybe another 200-300 pounds for your other living expenses. 1,100-1,200 pounds is your overall cost per month, and you were mentioning earlier you can earn something like 2,000 to 2,500 pounds per month.
Exactly.
Right? So you're saving.
So regardless of which part of UK you work in, the national pay scale applies everywhere. Unlike India, where you get more in Delhi and less in, let's say, Bangalore, it doesn't apply the same in UK. Whether you're in a small village hospital or you're in the biggest hospital in the biggest city, the pay scales are more or less same, apart from a little bit added to the people working in the city for expenses. But let's say if you live in a smaller city like Vijay mentioned, Portsmouth, some of these big hospitals also have accommodation which takes care of a lot of your running costs like electricity bills or other council taxes. But it will sort of provide you accommodation near or on the site of the hospital itself. Even if that's not possible, the rents outside London, especially, are significantly lower, where it becomes very affordable to have a decent house or share a house with other colleagues without incurring huge charges. So, I mean, like, I work in London, but I also work in a suburban hospital where nurses are renting a house for £1,000 a month, but 4 of them, so it's £250 each. So they do save a lot of money from things like that. Apart from that, is also the other costs. School is free, your own healthcare is free whilst you're in UK. So all these expenses which you don't actually add up usually, but when you look at these costs otherwise, it's a big saving. So education for children, and the education for health for yourself and your family is all taken care of. That's a big saving.
Yeah.
So Vijay, you want to move on to the next?
Yeah. So I can. Yeah, I think basically the slide talks about very good feedback. Rajesh, you were mentioning lots of nurses who are there are very happy with the decision of having moved to UK, right?
Absolutely. Not just nurses. I think anybody who's moved here, most people have then settled down here. Very few people actually leave just purely because of either monetary issue or things like that, because the satisfaction you get, the quality of life you get, also the quality of life you get in UK is a lot better than most people can imagine in India for nursing staff.
Yeah. Okay, great. So let me cover this slide. This is what do nurses in India need to do to be eligible for a GLP program. So the first one is your degree. So you need a BSc nursing degree or a GNM certificate to be able to be eligible. You need a minimum of 6 months of nursing experience within the last 2 years. So this is important. I do see a question here of someone saying his wife had a 5-year break in the work. So this is the answer, Ramesh, to your question, that your wife will need to have a minimum of 6 months of work experience within the last 2 years. So if she's taken a 5-year break, then she must do something for 6 months as a nurse, and then she becomes eligible, assuming all the other parameters are met. And then the third criteria is these testing scores. So there are these 2 exams for testing on English, IELTS or OET, and you need to clear at least any one of them. You don't need both. You need to clear any one of them. And what you need as an IELTS score is a minimum overall score of 7. And you need to get at least 6.5 in writing and 7 in reading, listening, and speaking skills. Yeah, the speaking section. You can also combine 2 OET exam scores if those 2 exams are taken within 6 months of each other within the last 2 years. And then you can only combine it if all the scores in individual sections in each of those tests is more than 6.5. And then as a combination, you still need to hit the 7 in reading, listening, and speaking, and 6.5 in writing. Yeah. So this is the combination that you need if you're combining 2 scores. Otherwise, simplest is you need an overall score of 7 and 6.5 in writing and 7 in listening, reading, and speaking skills. In OET, there is a very similar thing. So you need a minimum of B overall grade, and then you need a B in speaking, reading, and listening, and a C+ in writing. And similar to the IELTS exam, even in OET, you can combine 2 scores as long as you have taken those 2 tests within 6 months of each other in the last 2 years, and you get a minimum of, and you get those minimum qualifying sections, and not less than C+ in any single section in both the tests. Yeah. So of course, you need any help, you can always reach out. We can help decipher this if this sounds confusing. But simple thing is you need the score of 7 or you need the score of B in OET or IELTS to be able to qualify. So 6 months work experience, a BSc nursing degree, and a qualifying score. That's all that you need. So once you have that, then what do you need to do? So you just need to, whether you came from Cornerstone or from PG&E, go back to whoever you contacted, and you need to give all of these documents together, which is your resume, your passport copy, your score certificate, your work experience certificate, and your degree certificate. Yeah. So put all that into a single mail and send it to your contact, either in PG&E or in Cornerstone. We'll review and make sure that you have completed it in every which way. If there's anything missing, or if there's any other thing we need from you, we'll get back to you immediately, usually within 24 hours or 48 hours. And once your documents are all complete, we send this for your registration into the GLP process. So the GLP process this is what is the process taken care of by the frontline team. So once they register you within GLP, you will get a notification on your registered email with your login credentials, which you need to, then add in and make sure all your information is correct and all the documents they want you to upload are uploaded. Once you've registered, then you get an interview. And this interview is with a senior nurse from one of the UK hospital trusts. And they give you time slots. You pick one of the time slots which is suitable to you. And of course, I mean, you can. There is a bit of to and fro that happens if you need some other timing or whatever. And then, once the interview is fixed, the interview is usually over a Zoom call or a Google Meet or whatever. We can also help you prepare for that interview in terms of, the kind of questions which are asked and how do you present yourself and represent your background and experience in a much better way. we can help you through that process. And once the interview is done, and you get a confirmation that you're going through, they will ask you to do an online CBT test. This is an computer-based test to be done online, and this is where you pay your 83 pounds as a fee for the CBT test. And once that is done, your process of what you need to do in India ends. It then sort of comes from GLP in terms of getting your appointment letter, getting your work visa, etc. process started. So I'm going to turn it over to Miral for this next step in terms of the visas, flights, etc., and then arrival into UK. Miral, over to you.
Yeah, just as Vijay mentioned, once you provide your details to us, we'll arrange your login details and all that on the GLP portal. And because of our relationship with the GLP program and the NHS, we can fast track your application as you prefer. So normally the nurses that have gone through us get the pick of the interview slots, they get the pick of the locations which are available. And normally the interviews are scheduled within the first week or two. So depending on how soon you want to move to the UK, we can arrange the interviews. And then as your interview gets completed, or as you finish your interview, we can, how should I put it, like discuss with the NHS Trust regarding your start date, and we can help you on that front as well. Along with it, as we said, like once the application is done, your interviews are done, then we also help you with the flight tickets. We help you, like once you have landed in the UK, we will be your pastoral care. We'll help you with settling in, and everything would be taken care of. And once you have arrived in the UK, you start your work with the NHS hospital that you have selected. So what you need to do is, like after that, you need to do your oxy training, which will be provided by the NHS hospital itself. They will help you with the training and all that. Till now, none of the nurses have failed the oxy exam from our end. So whoever has applied and gone through the whole kind of a process, they have passed their oxy. And once you pass your oxy, you get fully registered with the NMC, and your salary also gets quite a big bump once you have completed your oxy and you're registered with the NMC. So in and all, we help you on each and every stage of your interview. We help you with on each and every stage of your moving to the UK, and we also help you in settling down into the UK once you have arrived in the UK.
Sounds good. So I think this bit we have already in a way covered in the previous slide. So this is kind of a summary of what this is. And, if you have any questions or thoughts, we are here to help. This is our email address for PG&E. You can write to us. You can, contact Cornerstone, our partners in this journey. And, we can help you through the process. Yeah, so that's pretty much our presentation. And I think it's now good to go through all the questions. We seem to have quite a few. So I'm going to stop this presentation and let's go through the Q&A. So I think, Raj, you may want to take this first one in the Q&A from Manoj Reddy. Shall I read it out to you, or can you see it?
Yeah, no, I just read. So this, I think I was reading it whilst I was kind of listening to the previous presentations. So I hope, Manoj, your question is answered about why should I move to UK if I'm only saving 500? I think money is important to all of us, but money is certainly a sort of not the only element of life. Like I said to you, the quality of life for yourself, your family members, your professional progression, your development as a key professional in the sort of world's biggest healthcare system, all these things will also matter. And as Miral and Vijay also mentioned that, this is your stepping stone package. It is certainly quite small when you start as a provisional nurse, and once you're fully qualified, as in registered with your OSCE exams cleared, you start seeing a bump in the salary, and you get a lot more opportunity to increase your sort of intake depending on how much you want to work. So your time is your money in a way. So don't be disheartened that why should I move and make such a big move just for 18,000 pounds. It pays you a lot more than 18,000 pounds, some in sort of cash and some in kind.
Yeah, and just to add to that, 18,000 the moment you come, within 3 months when you pass your Oxy, it goes to 24,000. And as I mentioned previously, your average take home salary is around, your average gross salary is around 34,000 to 35,000 pounds at the end of year one, with the shift allowance and everything. Plus you can work overtime. So on average, you can save about between 1,000 and 1,500 pounds at least on a monthly basis to begin with. Plus, as we mentioned, like because of this program, your family can come as well. So if you got your husband and all that, they also get a work visa. So if you think from that perspective, you can make really good savings on a monthly basis, because your husband or your wife, I mean, depending on who the nurse is, both of you would be able to work, and it suddenly, like your savings goes up, multiplies, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to add also that a £1,000 salary saving in rupee terms in equivalent India is almost a lakh a month. 1 lakh a month is not a small sum to be able to save when you're starting your career in a new country and all that. And not to talk about the quality of life that Rajesh was talking about earlier. I think so. It's that overall package that one should look at. Okay, I think the next one we covered that I have a 5-year gap. Can I be eligible to apply for an NHS hospital? So you need to have that 6 months experience within the last 2 years. So if you have a gap in your experience, then you will need to work for 6 months somewhere before you can apply.
So I think Vijay, the same person asked us second question about can they apply to a private firm? I don't think there is any sort of embargo on what kind of hospital you work in, as long as it's eligible or like a proper hospital. I don't know if there are any other sort of restrictions in India side. There's a recognition of hospitals for nursing staff. Maybe Vijay, you can add to that.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Yeah, I think there is no restriction on that. Sorry, I was looking at the next question of Asha Roy. Is IELTS compulsory? And if yes, then what is the score? So you have to take either IELTS or OET. It's one of the two, but one of the two is compulsory. Yeah, you will need to clear your, because it's an assessment of English to be able to work in the UK, and that's a mandatory requirement in any profession, especially healthcare. You'll certainly need that. Yeah. Nisi Jobin is asking, I need to apply for PR in UK. So how is it possible? So I'm not sure it pertains to, I don't know if we can answer that. That's probably a...
So I think any professional coming to UK can, they're all eligible for permanent residency as long as they do stipulated time as a sort of a working visa holder. For nurses, I think it is 5 years. So you have to be 5 years continuously in the UK, and then you can apply, and there's a separate process for it. If you come across, you can sort of go through the whole process of how you apply for permanent residency and even in fact citizenship if need be. I'm sure Mary or Miral might have better information, or if there's any clarification, Miral or Mary, or is that accurate?
I think so. The way it works, like you get the 3-year visa once you apply, and once you're over here, at the end of 3 years, you get again 2-year extension. And once you have done your 5 years, you can apply for your permanent residentship.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Next question is from Mandeep Kaur saying, I get my salary in cash. Can I apply? I will not be able to show bank statement. So I think that, we're not looking for any salary statement or anything like that anyway. What we need is a proof of employment. So we need, your continuous proof of, so you may need to give a recent certificate from your company, your hospital, to show that you are indeed, working there. So I think that's the important proof of employment document that we need. We don't need any salary statement. Yeah, did I put that right, Miran?
Yes, you are right. Yeah, we don't need any employee. We only need like, okay, your work experience. Like they should be able to
Yeah.
authenticate it when it comes to the reference check. That is it.
Yeah. I think the next question Raj has already answered. Right? My wife can apply for a private firm. Is there any specifications of hospitals in which the candidate should have worked?
No,
Miran?
not that I'm aware of. No, but it has to be a kind of a hospital environment.
Right. So there's no, how big an hospital is needed, that there is no such requirement, right? As long as
Not
the
that we
registered,
know of, no.
yeah. Okay. And okay, experience should be of a hospital, or can it be as a nursing tutor? Malti Randhawa was asked.
Hospital.
Has to be a hospital.
Yeah, you need to be in the hospital environment. You need to be working as a nurse.
Yeah, the thing is you're applying, see, the thing is you're applying for a job as a nurse in the NHS for clinical work. And hence it's become important that, you have to have clinical experience of minimum 6 months in the last 2 years. If you have any other skills like being a clinical tutor or an instructor, once you're in a job here, you probably can get opportunities to again practice them or use them to enhance your sort of progression and sort of salary.
Yeah. Then I think Mandeep was asking again, what are the processing charges? So like, I think we've probably not explicitly stated here, there are no processing charges at all that we charge. So all our services that we've discussed here is all free. We don't charge anything to any nurse. The things that you need to pay for, we had covered it in one of the slides, which is your IELTS exam or OET exam fees, which you need to pay to the exam, the organization running the exam, not to anyone else. You need to pay your CBT registration fee, and then once you go to UK, then you need to pay for your, the NMC registration, etc. So all those are the processing charges. There is no fees that we charge at all from you. I hope, Mandeep, that's clear. Okay.
Yeah, and just to add to Vijay what he just said, as we are the premium partners with NHS, we adhere to the code of ethics. So anyone, if you come across any other kind of like recruitment firm or consulting firm who charges you, they are not adhering to that standard. And if the NHS finds out about it, they will blacklist that firm, and they'll also, your visa and all that would also get affected, your application. So I would highly suggest that whoever you engage with, if you're not engaging with us or you've already been engaging in the past, if they have been asking for any admin and all those fees, then something is wrong. That would be a red flag for me. So please take into consideration to avoid all those kind of like, agents or any other recruitment firm who are there to kind of like take fees from you.
Thanks, Miral. Then Ranjita is asking what to choose, OET or IELTS. I can add my bit here saying, actually both exams are equally valid. We've heard from some of the nurses here that OET exams are easier, and therefore the ability to get qualifying results in a OET is better than IELTS. However, OET exam cost is almost twice as much as IELTS exam cost. So IELTS exam cost in India is roughly about 15,000. OET is 31,000 plus. So that is a consideration. If it is not a consideration for you, you could look at both. I'm told that OET is a bit easier, to clear from a nurse's point of view. But really, it's your choice. Both are equally valid and are equally applicable. Okay, next question, Malti Randhawa. Is there any option without IELTS? Like I've heard that NHS is recruiting as a senior staff in mental health. It seems like without IELTS, they are recruiting. That's what Malti is asking. So, Miral, any?
No, so no, IELTS would be required. I mean, so whatever, whether you work in the
I don't
mental,
think so. I don't think there will be any.
no, because I mean, I think it depends. Like, I mean, as I said, like some of the agencies and all that, they might try to take your details and all that, but IELTS is required to be registered with the NMC over here. So it is not the NHS who lays down the rules. It is more the council. If you want to work as a registered nurse, you need to meet those requirements from the council. Raj, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I totally agree. I think not only nurses, no professional is allowed to come on a work visa without IELTS or any of the English standard exams, because the minimum criteria needed to work in the UK is that you should be able to write and speak English to a certain level. Whether you be a doctor, a nurse, a lawyer, a scientist, a technician, everybody has to do some kind of English level exam. So I'm very surprised that somebody told you that mental health nurses are being allowed to come without IELTS outside from UK. Only exceptions are if you are from Ireland, Scotland, UK. Earlier it was Europe, but even now Europeans who are coming across have to do IELTS exams.
And I would also raise that as a red flag, Malti, that if someone's telling you this, that itself raises a red flag on that. So it's better to check. These things are it's very important to get the right information. Yeah. So Nisi Jobin is asking, is it possible to go with the spouse in the first go? Can the spouse go along with the nurse right away? Miral?
Yeah, you can. So, sorry, what's the question? Can you repeat? I didn't catch it in the first go.
Can the spouse go with the nurse
Yes,
right away?
they can. Absolutely. And that's the thing where we help you as well, because like as part of the program and as part of the visa, the offer and the visa letter covers the spouse and the family. But what we recommend and what the NHS recommend, like whoever comes first, let them come first, settle down for the first month or two, finish their oxy, and then the spouse and the family comes. It's a bit easier to kind of like continue your day-to-day life, because the oxy is quite important once you come to the UK, because your registration, your bump in the salary, all that depends on passing the oxy ASAP. So that's the recommendation. But yes, the spouse can come along with the nurse, and the whole family can come as well. If you've got children, they can accommodate you as well.
Thanks. Is there any hospital in London that comes under GLP?
As of now, no. But as I said, a lot of the hospitals are being pushed into signing up for the GLP program by the NHS, as it's the only authorized program at a central level. But as Maddie mentioned initially, we work with a couple of the largest hospital private chains as well. So we can find you a role in a private hospital over here in London, number one. And secondly, we have contacts with a couple of trusts in London, and we would be happy to explore that for you. But the cost of living is very high in London, on the other hand. So please be aware of it. But if you've got a location preference, let us know and we can explore it for you outside the GLP program as well.
Yeah. Do I have to write the OET or IELTS exam again after 2 years? Yeah, the answer is yes. It's the exam scores are valid for 2 years. So if you've given that exam before 2 years, then you'll have to take it again.
So
Uh,
I think the interpretation could be like, so if you have had your IELTS taken 2 years back and you're not applied for the for the role in the UK, yes, you need to do it again. But once you're in the UK, you don't need to do it. You need to do it only once to get the visa and to move to the UK. After that, it's
yeah,
not needed.
yeah. So before you move in, I mean, at the time of application, your OET or IELTS exam should be within the last 2 years, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Nancy Sharma is asking, can I move to Scotland further after joining any hospital in England? I guess you can move to Scotland even right away, right?
Yeah. But as you said, like, once you come into the GLP program, once you start work, and then we can explore other options. It's more easier that way to move
Okay.
across hospitals, across regions.
Great. Should the hospital be this much bedded or needs an accreditation, for example, NABH? I guess this Asha is asking from a work experience point of view, which Rajesh had clarified earlier, that there is no specific requirement of what kind of hospital. Yeah, it should be a accredited, authorized, formal hospital where you have an experience. So that's what we look for in terms of the work certificate. But what kind of hospital, there is no any specific requirement of how big and all that.
Yeah.
Then Reena is asking any age limit for who can apply. I guess no, there is no up. I guess what was up to the retirement age. Right? I guess. But what is it, Rajesh? 65.
No, the actual the retirement age is 60 for women and 67 for men at the moment. But there is no age limit to application, because
But
the NHS does not allow you sort of any bias as far as age or sex or your origin or background is concerned. So
right.
you still apply. You can still apply, and they will very happily have nurses even with sort of experience either in life or in profession.
Yeah. And we have had a couple of nurses who had more than 20 years of experience. So it's absolutely fine. They value the experience as well. So there's no discrimination on that front at all.
Great. Manoj Reddy is asking, what's the average cost of food for a person in 1 month in the UK?
It depends, Manoj, what do you like to eat and how much you eat. But on an average, I would say, if you shop sensibly, cook most of the food and eat less of the sort of processed food, you can easily do with sort of between 100 to 200 pounds a month for one person, or even less. There are lots of Indian shops also, which you can get all your Indian delicacies and Indian food. Probably sometimes the range is even bigger than the ones you get in India. The food is pretty cheap, the Indian food as well. So I've seen people who have survived on 30, 40, 50 pounds also. And it depends on your taste, but on average between 100 to 100 pounds a month.
Yeah, and
Thanks,
also like
Rajesh.
to add to that, like if you're cooking at home and all that, I would say £100 is quite a good amount per month per person, but it depends. But so there are people who can easily kind of have a kind of a good kind of a 40-50 pound is also good enough on average, and there are people who spend £100 as well per month. So it just depends on your taste and what you prefer. More cooking more at home or eating out, and a good mix of it. But it is not expensive, let me put it that way. Compared to your salary and the percentage wise, it's very, very reasonable to survive over here in London on the cost of food.
Okay, Manoj is asking again, do you accept experience from a public health center? Sounds like it may not be a hospital or a nursing experience thing. So this may not work, right, Miral?
But as I say, if it's a hospital kind of a environment, like if it's a public sector, if it's a public sector hospital, you need to have dealt with patients, and in terms of doing the required job of a nurse, in other words. And if the public sector, I'm a bit like, is it more like you're working as an administrator or what? What do you suggest by public sector?
No, I guess this sounds like this is not one of the. I mean, Manoj, just use the guideline that it should be a hospital where the experience is of a practicing nurse, right? Because that's the work experience that they're looking
Yeah.
for in GLP. So if you have that, then absolutely you should apply. And we can maybe share your CV with us, and we can review it and give you individual feedback if that works or not.
And the other thing that I think probably we forgot to mention is like, when you get the interview from the hospital that you have chosen, will help you on the interview preparation as well. And we know, because of the experience that we have within the team, and also like placing the nurses, we know exactly like, okay, this is what how the interview will be conducted, this is what you need to do, and will help you through the whole preparation as well. So we are there as your partners from the UK side, and from the India side we have got PG&E and like Cornerstone, who will be kind of like assisting you on every stage. And we are always available for any queries, anything that you need help with, we'll be there to assist you with.
Yes. The next question, I think we spoke about it. One of the agents is asking me to pay rupees 1,500 extra for every step, saying it's transaction charges. And is there anything such? So, like we clarified, absolutely not. You have to be very, very careful about these kind of agents. The moment someone asks for money, you can take it for sure that they are not. They are some kind of a quack, not an authorized person.
Yeah.
Avoid it. Like we said, I mean the thing is, this is all to be whatever is to be paid by you was mentioned in the presentation very clearly. That is all there is. You should not pay a single rupee more than that.
And that money that was mentioned about IELTS and all that should go straight to the organization, not to an agent
to
or
anyone. Yeah, it should
so
not be paid to anyone.
So when you go through us, we will not ask you to put that money into any other account. It would be, here's the registration link, register with the IELTS. So if you've already done that, the fees. There's no fees that one should charge to the candidates, and that's the guideline from the NHS, and we adhere to it. As I said, like if somebody is not adhering to the guideline, they would be discredited by NHS if they're not already done. And if you go through those kind of agents or consultancy firm, your chances of getting jobs will be impacted as well.
Yeah, I think we'll move a bit faster. Any options with less band or less grades? I'm not sure what this question is, but I think if you mean for qualifying, then the basic minimum qualifying criteria we shared, and you start at grade 3 NHS till you clear your ASCII exam, and then you become grade 5. So that bit is quite clear. If Anup, we didn't answer your question, please just reach out to us at the helpdesk@pgne.in, and we can answer your question better if we didn't understand it properly. There's one more question. I have an experience in neonatal ICU. Am I eligible for this? I guess absolutely, right?
Yes, absolutely, you're eligible. But as you said, like I think the challenge with the neonatal is like there are very few hospitals who have those wards and that specialism, and we know exactly where we can fit you in and how we can explore that opportunity. So yes, you are eligible. Feel free to share your profile and your details, and we'll take it up from there.
Manoj is asking one more question. Do you pay extra for dealing with COVID patients or working in COVID wards?
I'll take that question. So Manoj, at the moment, UK hospitals are almost empty from COVID point of view. But when there was surges, some of the nursing staff have been paid a supplement for the sort of working beyond their kind of duty. It has been very much not a national system, but more of a hospital to hospital basis. Some have paid in benefits, some have paid in cash. However, now moving forward, as there is a lot of backlog for the routine work, there will be ample opportunities to enhance your salary with extra work, doing extra shifts. Like, you know, Mirrors mentioned, in UK, if you work 9 to 5 hours as in sort of the daytime hours of the working days, Monday to Friday, you get paid your basic salary. If you take any extra shifts or work out of hours, especially nights or weekends or something like bank holidays, which are national holidays, you get paid a lot more. So there's also opportunity there. Working in the NHS, there is a lot of new programs are starting to increase the amount of work we do within the NHS to kind of catch up with the backlog or all the waiting list. So again, there'll be added bonuses or added sort of money being sort of given to professionals who provide that service. So there are a lot of extra payments which might come, not just for COVID, but sort of because of COVID, let's put it this way.
Thank you, Rajesh. Two questions on private hospital requiring IELTS. So yeah, the answer is it's the same IELTS score requirement for private hospitals as it is for the NHS hospitals. So it's the same. Qualifying criteria is no different. If you want to apply for private or GLP, NHS.
Absolutely. So I think what everyone needs to kind of like differentiate is that IELTS and all this requirement is made by the nursing council, because you need all those requirements to get registered as a nurse. The NHS or the hospital, the private hospitals are happy to take on nurses who are who have got the approval to be registered by the NMC or who are registered with the NMC. So that's why all these requirements are set in stone, irrespective of whether you go for NHS or you go for private.
Yeah. Anup, your question on can I apply? I'm above 45 years age, so Dr. Rajesh had already answered it. Yeah, no age limit. Absolutely, you can apply. What's the process time for the whole process? Nancy is asking. So, Miral, maybe for you to answer.
So as I think if I was not clear, because of our premium status with the program and our network, the moment you provide us your CV and if you meet the IELTS score, within 48 hours, you'll get the login and everything set up. The moment you upload your documents on the GLP portal, within a week we can arrange an interview for you depending on your availability and the hospital's availability. So post the interview, I think within 2 to 3 weeks you can move over here. So the earliest, I would say, from an end-to-end perspective, 4 weeks you can get the visa and everything, kind of like letter and all that done. But on average it takes about 6 weeks, I'll put it that way, because of like you want to have a specific interview slot or a specific location, and like also you need to go to the embassy to get your visa stamp, because the letter and the sponsorship letter and all that would be done in and around 4 week time. So that's the processing time, I would put it that way, from an end-to-end perspective. But some of the nurse, even after getting, once you clear the interview and all that, you might want to start in 3 months time. That's absolutely fine as well. So we work around your preference and your availability and how you want to process. But from our end, we can fast track it ASAP as needed.
Thanks, Madam. So, yeah, Anup, your question on size of the hospital, absolutely. To repeat, that's not a criteria. Of course, it needs to be a valid authorized hospital as per Indian law. So that's the only requirement. It should be a valid hospital. But what size and how many beds, that doesn't matter. This an anonymous question. Please tell us about traveling charges on an average per month. Rajesh, you want to?
So again, it depends on where you're living and which hospital you're working in. So, like I said to you, outside London, a lot of people either live around the hospital, so you can walk to the hospital. Some of the bigger hospitals outside London have their own accommodations, which is within the hospital and campus or the hospital boundaries. Within London, again, it depends on your distance between the two places. So I know a lot of nursing staff in my hospital, which is a central London hospital. They travel anything between 5 minutes to an hour to get to a hospital. And the transport links are fantastic, whether you're in London or even outside. So it's not a big issue. There is, now there's a big push, especially in UK, being a sort of, towards green. So you can get even loans from the NHS to buy a bicycle if you want to cycle from work to home, which is possible now with, the roads are being changed to cycle lanes, despair for the motorists, but it's fantastic news for the cyclists. So there are lots of ways. So it's very difficult to say what exactly are the charges. It depends on where you live and where the hospital is.
Yeah, and so if you are living outside London, right, and you're working in the local hospital, normally people walk or they cycle or they take the bus. And the bus pass is about, I mean, if you live outside, I think it's probably about 20-25 pounds or maybe 30 pound a month. I mean, it's very, very reasonable. But most of the people are able to just commute by bicycle or by walking, as they would be close to the hospital premises.
Yeah, and when you get
What
employed,
sorry, Raj, sorry, go on.
no, you go and finish your statement. I was going to
So,
add something about the NHS.
yeah, so what I was also going to say is like most of the infrastructure is built and around the hospital itself. So you got accommodation built around the hospital, the schooling is there for your children. There are other job opportunities and other kind of companies around the hospital itself. So that way, everything is within accessible distance.
Yeah. No, I was going to add that once you get employed here, you can also find out from your trust in your human resources what kind of staff benefits they provide. There are lots of big benefits and small benefits. The big benefits being like financial support for buying a cycle, even leasing a car, for sort of, discounts on public transport. So there are lots of different things you can apply for. And again, if you're living on hospitals, some of the bigger hospitals have like nursery for children, so you can drop your child to the nursery in the morning and pick them up when you finish a shift. So lots of those things. So I think commuting wise, or even supporting your outside professional life, there are a lot of considerations being put in by the NHS in almost every trust in every hospital in the country.
Okay, and this is an interesting question. Maybe you want to, Miral, you can touch on this. What is the kind of questions that are asked in the interview? Do you have a sense that you can share with the nurses?
What I would suggest is like the kind of once you're registered and all that, we can help you with the interview. But normally the interview process is very much to do with your how you deal with the patients and what's your approach towards it, and also some of the competence in terms of, say, if this is a scenario, how would you deal with it, or what your approach is. So it's more of like understanding how you are as a person and how you will deal in an emergency and on a normal day-to-day basis in dealing with patients. But happy to kind of, once you reach that stage, we will share all the questions. We'll also get an expert like from HR or even like within our team to prep you up for the interview. Anyone who has gone through us have never failed an interview. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. That's good. So Mandeep, question on how to start. Basically, reach out to us. We need your completed documents, your CV, your passport copy, your work certificate, your IELTS score. If you can email that to us, we'll reach out to you and start the process immediately. Yeah, so just starting point could be just email us these documents and we can take it from there. We'll guide you through the whole process and the next step. Next, I think how much time has already been covered. There's a question on, can I take CBT before August as pattern has to be changed from
Yeah,
August.
you
So there's
can
some-
take the CBT before August.
Maybe it's for you,
absolutely.
Miral. There's
Yeah,
some
you can take
change
the
in the
CBT.
pattern in the CBT
Yeah,
from
so you
August.
can take the
Is that so?
yeah, they are changing the how should I put it? Yeah, the pattern, but it would the content will be similar. So if you want to take the CBT prior to August, it's absolutely fine. That way you'll be able to fast track your application as well. If you met your IELTS score, if you got a BSc or a GNM, absolutely fine. Go for it. Sorry, did Vijay freeze or?
Not sure. I can see you and Mehdi. I can't see
Yeah.
Vijay at the.
Same here.
Yeah, I'm here as well. I think what happened probably is the time finished on the Zoom call.
Oh,
Because if I'm going into the participant, I
Ah.
can't see anyone.
There we go. Vijay's back
no, I
on.
can see 16.
Hi, hi.
I can see
guys,
17.
back.
Yeah,
Something happened to
Oh, okay.
my internet here. I don't know what happened.
Oh, alright. So,
Are you guys there? Hello?
yeah, we are there.
Hi.
yeah, we can see you and we can let's see.
Okay, I'll just turn my video off just to probably help the
Okay.
process. Okay, I think we must soon wind up, but a few more questions that we can start. That we can take here. If our requirements are met, can we get your Gmail ID or contact number? Asha Roy is asking. So yeah, it's help. You can just write to us right now at helpdesk@pgini.in and we can guide you through that. Or you can write to jyotika@pgini.in. Yeah, any one of the two, and we can help you through the process, Asha.
What I would suggest is like, Vijay, why don't you just bring up the last slide, which has the detail
Yeah.
about the help desk email ID.
Okay. While you
You
do
guys
that, shall I
see?
take the next 2 or 3 questions, which I probably can answer the best? Okay.
Yeah, do
There's
that.
an anonymous question. Is there a still chance to move during this pandemic? Will NHS accept us from India? So, in a nutshell, the answer is yes, but you will have to adhere to the immigration laws from a red zone at the moment, which means when you come across, you will have to isolate in a hotel for 10 days at your own cost. I'm not sure GLP will sort of in any way help you with sort of reimbursing the cost, but certainly they will be at least sending you letters of employment. I'm not sure if there is any sort of plans of deferring the employment because the recruitment is still going on. Miral, can you add anything to that?
No, you're right. So basically, you can come into the UK even during this pandemic as long as you're able, as long as the embassies are open in India for you to go and get your visa stamped. And once that is done, we'll have to adhere to the government guidelines, and we can speak with the hospital, and they can assist you on that if need be. But I think, as I said, if you got the IELTS, if you got the certification, and if you go through us through the interview process, we can start the interview process ASAP, and then once you get the offer, you'll need to be able to go to the embassy, because right now I think the embassies are shut. They're opening in first or the second week of June in India, the UK embassy. So yeah, you can come absolutely, but we'll have to adhere to the government guidelines, and the NHS hospitals will definitely assist you on that front.
Okay. So next question is, apart from an annual leave of 27 days, how many leaves do you get per month? So Manoj, that annual leave is 27 days over the year. You also get 8 bank holidays, which are national holidays for UK, which span over Christmas, Easter, and sort of other days off in May and August. So that's 8 extra days. Per month is difficult to say, but when you get an employment, you also get a contract of how many shifts you do. So there will be times when you will not be working during the weekdays. If you're not doing a weekend shift, then weekend is also off. So there's lots of time off. You're not stuck in work sort of late hours every day. But that depends on your shifts and your sort of work pattern. But annual leave certainly will be what you mentioned. Once you've completed 5 years in the NHS, your number of annual leave days goes up from 27 to 28. If you complete, 27 to 30. And I think this goes up further to 32 if you've done 10 years. So also you get rewarded for being in the NHS for longer time. The next question is from Anup Agarwal, just to confirm that education for children is free or subsidized and up to what age? So being a sort of a welfare state, UK provides free education to all children up to the age of 18. The only thing is before school starts, that is preschool, nursery, you get a little bit of reimbursement, but you don't get full refund of all your fees. You can, though, within the NHS and some trusts, apply for things called vouchers. So you can pay through your untaxed salary for certain amounts of educational sort of services, including nursery, schools, or school as in sort of school related things, or even if you have like childminders or people coming to babysit who are registered. So there's a lot more subsidized apart from free education for all school going children.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, from 4 years onwards, schooling is free throughout till you are 18. And once if your children are below 3 years old, you get like I think 15 or 20 hours per week of free kind of like childcare. So in essence, it is free through and through. If they go into the college and all that, they pay quite a subsidized fees if you're doing your university over here. But that is also you get a loan and all that that everyone pays over here. But the schooling is free, in other words, till you are 18.
Yeah. And then I think there's
next
another question.
Yeah, OSCE. After completion of OSCE, what document is needed for spouse visa? Actually, the spouse visa per se has nothing to do with OSCE, right? I mean, just to clarify, because you can apply for your spouse visa even now as you apply for your GLP. But what document is needed for that, Miral, would you know that?
So the way it works is like once you get a job offer from the NHS Trust, it also gives you a sponsorship letter for the family. That is more than enough to get the spouse visa. But there's no additional document. Obviously, additional document like passport and all that would be there, but nothing of like, oh, this is what you need to have and this education and all those things. No, that's not a requirement as of now.
Yeah. I think we have the last two questions. Jyotika is asking, do I have to present the work experience certificate right away? I think you do, right? To apply.
Yeah, so the way it works is like you provide your CV, your IELTS and all the, the passport copy and all that. So the work experience certificate is normally needed when the reference is being done. So once you are applying, once you got the interview and all that, and once you get a job offer, as part of that, there would be checks being done on the diploma or the degree certificate and your work experience, where you say like if you worked with in this hospital, then that hospital will be contacted to validate the number of months or years that you worked over there and in which capacity.
Yeah, and I would add to that saying it does help us to validate your application even right away. So if you have it, please do share, because then we can help you through the process faster.
Absolutely. But your last job that you're still going on, if you're working in your last employment, that certificate you probably wouldn't have anyway because you're working, but that would be part of the final checks. But if you work experience certificate from your previous employers or hospitals, feel free to share. That will help us in fast tracking it.
Yeah. And then Malti Randhawa is asking, can I apply after I finish my IELTS, as it will take another 2-3 months to complete? So Malti, what I would say is absolutely just send in your rest of your documents so that we can at least do the pre-registration and keep it ready. And the moment you finish your IELTS course, you give us your IELTS certificate and we can start the process. So the official process will not start till you get the IELTS score, but at least we can complete all your, pre-registration and have it ready to go the moment you finish your IELTS. Yeah, so that's what I would say. You can send in all the rest of your documents to us immediately. Then the last question, what happens if we do not clear OSCE? Would we be allowed to continue to work as unregistered or must we resign and look for another job?
So on the OSCE side, you are able to attempt 3 trials over a period of a year within 12 months. So you need to pass the OSCE to continue working. And the way it is, like, the people who have been placed through us, and once you're working in the hospital, the chances of you not passing the OSCE are very, very minimal. But it is a requirement that you need to complete your OSCE to continue working in the UK. And hence, as I said, the recommendation from us as well as the NHS is like, whoever gets the job, come over here, focus on your OSCE as part of the training and all that the NHS hospital will provide. Pass it within the first 3 months, and then you are set for a long kind of I would say, career with the NHS.
Yeah.
Raj,
So
anything
I'll
you
just
wanna
add to that. Yeah, no, I'll add to that Asha, OSCE is nothing but it's an assessment of what you do day to day in your clinical work, right? So OSCE is also there for doctors and for nurses. What they're trying to see is that now that you worked for a few months in the NHS hospitals, are you able to do the basic necessity to keep your patient safe and your communication with the patient is adequate? It's not a challenging exam. It's not an exam you have to read books and books and books. It is more about practicing or demonstrating what you practice every day in your clinical life.
Excellent. I know we have overshot almost 30 minutes, but it was brilliant. I think, there were a lot of questions. So want to thank each one of you who attended and also our panelists for their very good insights. I think very critical to remember that, we've tried to put very transparently what's there, right? What's the process, the do's, don'ts. And, I think it's very critical in this process to go with people that you can trust to take you through to the end and find the right job in the right process. So, and that's the endeavor we have here between Frontline, PG&E, Cornerstone. We want to make sure that you go through this process completely in as open and transparent way. We will wrap up here. You will get a recording of this presentation as well, maybe sometime tomorrow in your registered email. And please feel free to reach out to us. We are here to help you. So and we would love to, start getting your CVs to go through the process and make sure, your aspirations of getting to UK are met as best as we can. Yeah. So thank you once again for your time and all the very best to each one of you. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Raj. Thanks, Miral. Thanks, Reddy.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you in UK soon.
Bye-bye.